I never believed in secrets until I discovered one that almost destroyed me. Sitting quietly in my in-laws' living room, I caught a conversation I was never meant to hear. That night, I learned my wife's biggest lie, and my world collapsed. But let me take you back a little. My name is Daniel, I'm 32, and until recently, I thought I had everything a man could ask for. A stable job, a supportive family, and a wife I loved more than anything. Her name is Emily. To the outside world, we looked like the perfect couple. People often told us we were made for each other, and for a while, I believed it too. Emily and I met in college. She was the kind of woman who could light up a room just by walking in. Smart, confident, always smiling. That's what drew me in. We spent long nights talking about our future, our dreams, how we'd build a life together. I trusted her completely, and when she said yes to marrying me, I thought my life had reached its happiest chapter. But life has a way of hiding storms behind clear skies. A few months into our marriage, I began noticing little things. Nothing too obvious, but enough to bother me. Emily would sometimes avoid certain topics about her past. She'd brush them off with a laugh, saying, "Oh, that's nothing important." And though I wanted to believe her, deep down, I knew there was more. Still, I ignored the signs. I convinced myself that every couple has secrets, and maybe I was just overthinking. But the feeling never truly left me. It lingered, like a shadow at the back of my mind. One evening, Emily invited me to her parents' house for dinner. It wasn't unusual, we often visited them, but something about that night felt different. The house was filled with laughter, the smell of roasted chicken, and the warmth of family chatter. Everything seemed normal, almost too normal. After dinner, Emily stepped into the kitchen to help her mother. I stayed in the living room, pretending to scroll through my phone while her father and uncle continued talking. That's when it happened. That's when I heard her name. My wife's name. At first, I thought they were just sharing an old family story, but then their voices dropped lower, heavy with seriousness. Words like, "he still doesn't know," and "she should have told him before," cut through the air like knives. My chest tightened. I leaned in closer, heart pounding so loudly, I feared they would hear it. I realized in that moment I wasn't supposed to hear any of it. Whatever they were hiding, it was about Emily. And it was about me. And just like that, the perfect life I thought I had began to crack. I sat there, frozen, my phone in my hand but my ears glued to every word coming from across the room. "Daniel, can't ever find out," her uncle whispered. Her father sighed heavily. "It's not our place to tell him. That's Emily's burden. But the longer she waits, the worse it'll get." My stomach turned. My wife's burden? What could they possibly mean? I tried to swallow, but my throat was dry. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. An old relationship, some family debt, maybe even a medical issue. But the way they spoke, the tone, the weight in their voices, it felt much darker than any of those possibilities. And yet I couldn't move. I couldn't interrupt. I sat there in silence, my heart pounding like a drum, until Emily returned from the kitchen carrying a tray of desserts. Her smile was as radiant as always, her laugh filling the room with warmth. To anyone else, she looked like the perfect daughter, the perfect wife. But to me, in that moment, she became a mystery I wasn't sure I wanted to solve. That night, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling while she drifted off to sleep. I replayed every word, every whisper I'd overheard. I wanted to shake her awake, demand the truth, but I didn't. Instead, I stared into the dark, listening to the sound of her breathing, wondering how many lies lay hidden beneath it. Days passed, but the memory of that night clung to me like a shadow. At work, I found myself distracted, staring blankly at my computer screen. At home, I studied her every move, every expression, searching for cracks in her smile. One evening, unable to take it anymore, I tried to test the waters. We were sitting at the dinner table when I casually asked, "Emily, is there anything you've been wanting to tell me? Something from the past, maybe?" She paused, her fork hovering midair, and then laughed. "Daniel, you're starting to sound like a detective." "No, there's nothing. Why do you ask?" Her tone was light, but her eyes flickered for a brief moment, betraying something she didn't want me to see. I forced a smile. "Just curious," I said, but inside, my suspicions grew heavier. The turning point came a week later. We were once again at her parents' house for a family gathering. After dinner, everyone scattered, some in the backyard, some upstairs, some in the kitchen. Emily went to grab drinks, leaving me alone in the hallway. And that's when I heard it again, her uncle's voice, low and tense. "She has to tell him. He's her husband. He deserves the truth." Her mother replied sharply, "If he finds out, it will destroy their marriage. She's finally happy. Do you want to take that away from her?" I pressed my back against the wall, my chest tightening. This wasn't just a small secret. This was something big, something dangerous enough to shatter everything we had built. When Emily reappeared with the drinks, I looked at her differently. Her smile felt like a mask now, her laughter rehearsed. Every affectionate gesture seemed staged, designed to keep me from looking deeper. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for her to confess. If she couldn't tell me the truth, I would find it myself. So I started digging. I never thought I'd become the kind of man who checked his wife's stories, but after that night, I couldn't help myself. Every word she said felt heavy, like it carried a hidden meaning I wasn't supposed to hear. It started small. Emily told me she was meeting a friend for coffee one Saturday morning. Normally, I wouldn't think twice, but this time, as she walked out the door, I glanced at her phone. She'd left charging on the counter. The screen lit up with a notification. No name, just a number, and a message that read, "See you at the usual place." My chest tightened. The usual place? I told myself it could be innocent, maybe even the friend she mentioned, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. I grabbed my jacket, waited 10 minutes, and then followed her. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. I felt like a stranger in my own life, like I was driving toward a truth I wasn't sure I wanted. She pulled up to a small cafe on the edge of town. I parked far enough away not to be seen, but close enough to watch. She walked inside, smiling, waving at someone sitting by the window. I leaned forward. It wasn't a man. It was a woman, older, dressed sharply, her expression serious. Emily sat down across from her, and the two leaned in close, talking quietly, almost conspiratorially. I couldn't hear a word, but I didn't need to. The way Emily's shoulders tensed, the way she kept glancing at the door as if afraid someone might see them. It wasn't the casual comfort of old friends catching up. It was something else, something secret. For nearly an hour, I watched them talk. Sometimes Emily's hands trembled as she lifted her cup. Sometimes the woman placed her hand over Emily's, calming her, reassuring her. And then, as if choreographed, they both stood, hugged tightly, and walked out together. I ducked down in my seat, my pulse racing. They didn't notice me. They walked to the parking lot, spoke briefly, and then left in separate cars. I stayed there long after she was gone, staring at the empty spot where they had sat. I didn't know who that woman was, but I knew she wasn't just a friend. When Emily came home later, she was cheerful, humming while she unpacked groceries. She kissed me on the cheek as if nothing had happened. I smiled back, hiding the storm inside me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the scene in my mind, the tight hug, the secretive glances, the whispered words I couldn't hear. My wife had a life I wasn't part of, and it terrified me. Over the next few weeks, I noticed other things, small things, but together they painted a picture I couldn't ignore. She started locking her phone. She took longer to run errands. Sometimes she'd step outside to take calls, her voice low, almost trembling. And every time I asked who it was, she'd smile and say, "Just work stuff, work stuff." But Emily worked at a local design studio. Their calls never came at midnight. One evening, I decided to push a little harder. We were having dinner, and I casually asked, "So, who's that new client you've been so busy with? You've been on the phone a lot lately." Her fork paused midair. Just for a second. Then she smiled too quickly. "Oh, just a small project. Nothing exciting." I nodded, but inside my doubts solidified. She was hiding something. And it was getting harder for her to keep it hidden. The breaking point came one Friday night. Emily said she was meeting a coworker for a late brainstorming session. I offered to drop her off, but she declined, saying she'd drive herself. That alone made me suspicious, so I followed her again. This time, she didn't go to the office. She drove across town into a quiet residential neighborhood. She parked outside a modest two-story house. The lights inside glowed warmly, and for a moment she just sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel like she was gathering courage. Then she got out and walked to the door. A young woman opened it, her face lighting up the second she saw Emily. They hugged, longer than friends usually do, and then Emily stepped inside, closing the door behind her. I sat there in my car, my whole body numb. Who was this woman? Why was my wife spending late nights at her house, lying about where she was? Hours passed. I waited. At midnight, Emily finally emerged, her eyes red, like she'd been crying. She hugged the woman again before driving away. When she slipped into bed beside me that night, pretending to be exhausted from work, I lay there in silence, staring at the wall. The weight of the secret pressed down on me so hard I could barely breathe. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers. But fear held me back. Fear of what the truth might be. Because by now, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever Emily was hiding, it wasn't small. It wasn't harmless. It was something that had the power to break us. And I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. The next morning, I woke up with a heaviness in my chest that coffee couldn't shake. Every look, every laugh, every touch from Emily now felt like a performance. I was starting to wonder if the woman I married even existed anymore, or if she had been replaced by someone I couldn't recognize. I told myself, no more guessing, no more spying from the shadows. I need answers. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I crossed the line. When Emily stepped into the shower that evening, I picked up her phone. My heart pounded like a drum in my ears. She had changed her passcode recently, but after trying our wedding anniversary, the screen unlocked, and there it was. Messages. Dozens of them. Not from coworkers, not from clients. From that woman. The same number I'd seen before. The texts weren't romantic, at least not in the obvious way, but they were intimate, emotional, heavy. I don't know how much longer I can keep this. From him. He deserves to know, but I can't risk everything yet. What if he never forgives me? My hands trembled, every word cut deeper than a knife. I scrolled further. There were mentions of meetings, the house, the documents. The day it all comes out. I couldn't piece it together, but one thing was clear. Emily wasn't just lying to me. She was living a second life. That night, I stared at her across the dinner table, trying to act normal. She laughed at something on TV, her eyes sparkling, and for a moment, I almost convinced myself it was all in my head. But the messages were burned into my mind. I needed the truth. The next weekend, Emily said she had errands. I told her I'd stay home and catch up on work, but the second she left, I followed. She drove not to the grocery store, not to her studio, but back to that same two-story house, This time, I couldn't just sit outside. My curiosity was eating me alive. I parked a few streets away, walked up the sidewalk, and crept close enough to see through the window. Inside, Emily sat on the couch, papers spread out on the coffee table. The young woman from before sat across from her, pointing to something on the documents. Emily's face was pale, serious, almost broken. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop. On the table, between the papers, was a photograph of a man. I couldn't see his face clearly, but Emily held it like it meant everything. Her hand trembled as her eyes filled with tears. The woman reached over, resting her hand on Emily's shoulder. Emily nodded, wiping her tears, and whispered something I couldn't hear. My mind spun. Who was he? Why did she have his picture? And why was she crying over him with another woman instead of telling me? I pressed my back against the wall, my breath shaking. I was trespassing not just on their space, but on the very boundaries of my marriage. Yet, I couldn't leave. I needed to know. Minutes later, Emily gathered the papers into a folder, hugged the woman, and left. I ducked behind a tree as she walked past, her face tight with emotion. I wanted to call out her name. I wanted to demand answers right there on the street. But I stayed silent, paralyzed by fear. When she drove away, I made a choice that changed everything. I walked up to the door and knocked. The woman opened it. She looked surprised, then cautious. "Can I help?" "You?" I swallowed hard. My voice cracked. "I'm Daniel, Emily's husband." Her expression shifted instantly, from suspicion to pity. That look terrified me more than anything. She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Maybe you should come in?" Inside, the house was quiet, almost too quiet. The folder was gone, but the weight of whatever had been discussed lingered in the air. I sat down, my hands trembling against my knees. "Please," I said, my voice breaking, "just tell me what's going on. She's my wife. I deserve to know." The woman studied me for a long moment. Finally, she sighed. "I can't tell you everything," she said softly. "It's not my place. But what I can say is this. Emily isn't betraying you the way you think. She's not having an affair, but she is hiding something. Something from her past. Something she's terrified of you finding out." Her words hit me like a thunderclap. Relief and dread collided inside me. Not an affair, but a secret. A secret big enough to shake her to her core. I leaned forward. "What kind of secret?" Woman's eyes softened almost with sympathy. "That's for Emily to tell you. All I can say is, when the truth comes out, it's going to change everything." My chest ached. My mind screamed. Change everything? What did that even mean? I left the house more broken than when I entered. For the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted the truth anymore, because whatever it wasn't just a small lie. It was something powerful enough to rewrite our marriage, our history, maybe even our future. That night, when Emily returned, she kissed me like nothing was wrong. But behind her eyes, I could see the storm she was trying to hide. And I realized. The real confrontation wasn't with the woman in that house. It was with my wife, and the day I asked her for the truth would be the day my world shattered. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily sitting in that house, clutching that photograph like it was her lifeline. Every laugh, every kiss, every whispered, "I love you," now felt like it was sitting on top of a fault line, ready to crack open beneath my feet. By morning, I knew I couldn't keep living in the dark. When Emily came into the kitchen, her hair damp from the shower, humming a tune under her breath, I realized how much I hated myself for doubting her. But the image of that woman's pitying eyes replayed in my mind like a curse. Emily I said, my voice heavier than I intended. She stopped humming, looked up at me with a soft smile that faltered the second she saw my face. What's wrong? I motioned for her to sit. My hands shook as I wrapped them around my coffee mug. We need to talk. The words sent a visible shiver through her. She pulled out a chair, sat down slowly, and folded her hands in her lap. Her eyes searched mine, as though she already knew this moment had been coming. I went to the house, I blurted out. My throat was tight, but I forced the words through. I saw you. I saw her. I saw the papers. The photo. Everything. Emily froze. Her face drained of color. For a moment, she looked like she couldn't breathe. You followed me? Her voice cracked, not in anger, but in fear. Yes, I admitted, my own voice breaking. Because I didn't know who you were anymore. Because I thought you were lying to me. And I was right. Tears welled in her eyes and she pressed her hands to her mouth. I expected denial, excuses, anger. But instead, she whispered, I never wanted you to find out like this. The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, I leaned forward, desperate and broken. Emily, please, just tell me the truth. Whatever it is, I can handle it, but I can't live like this anymore. Her tears spilled over as she shook her head. No, Daniel, you don't understand. The truth, it will change everything between us. It will change you. My heart cracked. Change me how? She looked away, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. When she finally met my eyes again, she wasn't just crying, she was trembling. You saw the photo, she said softly. The man in it. He's the reason for all of this. The reason I've been hiding. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Who is he? Emily closed her eyes, took a shaky breath, and when she opened them, her voice was a whisper that nearly destroyed me. He's my husband. The world stopped. My mug slipped from my hands and shattered on the floor, but I didn't even hear it. Her words echoed in my skull, each syllable tearing my reality apart. Husband. Not me. Someone else. I stared at her, numb, my mind refusing to process what I had just heard. What are you talking about? I'm your husband. Her face, twisted in agony. Yes, you are, but before you, before us, there was someone else, someone I never told you about, because he's not gone. I felt the air leave my lungs. My chest burned, my vision blurred. Emily, are you telling me you're still married to someone else? She buried her face in her hands, sobbing. It's not what you think. It's not an affair. It's not love. It's something I never escaped. Something that followed me even when I tried to build a new life with you. The ground beneath me felt like it was collapsing. My wife, my life, my marriage, all of it was now a lie tangled with another man's shadow. I stood, pacing, gripping my head as if I could squeeze the confusion out of it. Why didn't you tell me? Why keep this from me all these years? Her voice cracked through her sobs. Because I thought I could bury him, that if I never spoke his name, if I never acknowledged him, he couldn't reach me anymore. But I was wrong. And now, it's catching up to me. I slammed my fist against the counter, the sound echoing like thunder. Emily, do you realize what you've done? Do you realize what this means for us? For everything we've built? She jumped at the sound, tears streaking down her cheeks. I know, Daniel, and I hate myself for it. But you have to. Believe me, I love you. You are the only man I've loved like this, the only man I've chosen, the only man who has ever truly been my husband in my heart. Her words twisted the knife deeper. My heart wanted to believe her. My mind screamed betrayal. I turned away, staring at the broken mug on the floor. Pieces everywhere, just like us. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I wondered if love was enough to survive the truth. Silence filled the kitchen, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator. My heart thudded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I forced myself to speak, though my voice cracked like dry wood. "Tell me everything, Emily. No more half-truths, no more secrets. Who is he?" Her hands trembled as she wiped her tears. She stared at the table as though afraid to meet my eyes. "His name is Ryan." The name felt like venom in my blood. Simple. Ordinary. Yet behind it lurked a storm I wasn't ready for. Emily swallowed hard. "I met him when I was 19. He was charming, magnetic. He had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the world. Within months, we were married. I thought I'd found my forever." Her lips quivered as she continued, her voice distant, as if replaying a nightmare. But forever turned into a cage. He wasn't the man I thought he was. He was controlling, manipulative, sometimes cruel. The kind of cruelty that doesn't always leave bruises you can see. I clenched my fists, rage burning inside me. "He hurt you?" Her eyes flicked up to mine, broken, vulnerable. Not always with his hands. But yes, he made me feel worthless, like I was trapped, like I'd never escape him. I leaned forward, my pulse racing. "So, you left?" She shook her head. "No, Daniel. I ran. One night when he was gone, I packed a bag and disappeared. I changed cities, changed jobs, cut off every connection. That's when I met you." My stomach twisted. Pieces of her puzzle were finally falling into place, but the picture was uglier than I imagined. "You should have told me," I whispered. "You should have trusted me." Emily's eyes filled with tears again. "I wanted to. God, I wanted to, but I was terrified. If Ryan ever found me, if he knew about you, he would destroy everything. He has this way of getting inside people's lives, twisting them. I thought keeping it buried was the only way to keep us safe." I paced, unable to stay still, torn between fury and heartbreak. "Safe? Emily, I've been living in a lie. Do you understand what that does to me? To us? To our vows?" Her voice broke as she stood, reaching for me. "Daniel, please. I didn't lie about loving you. That's the one truth I've clung to, even when everything else was built on fear." I pulled back, shaking my head, but her words clung to me. "Why now?" I demanded. "Why the visits to that house? Why the papers? Why the secrecy, again, if you were trying to protect me?" Her expression shifted, fear morphing into something darker. She lowered her voice as though speaking the words aloud might summon him. "Because Ryan found me." The room tilted, my chest tightened. "What do you mean? He found you?" Emily's hands shook as she held herself as though bracing against invisible chains. 3 weeks ago, I got a letter. No return address. Just a single sentence. "I know where you are." My blood ran cold. She continued, her voice trembling. "That house you followed me to? It belongs to his sister. She called me, said Ryan wanted to meet, wanted to talk things out. I didn't tell you because I thought I could handle it. I thought I could protect you from him." I slammed, my hand on the table, my anger finally erupting. "Protect me? Emily, you don't keep this from your husband. You don't fight this battle alone. That's not protection. That's betrayal." Tears streaked down her cheeks, but she didn't back away. "You're right, and I hate myself for it, but you don't know him like I do. He doesn't just destroy marriages. He destroys people. He would have gone after you, Daniel. After us. And I couldn't let that happen." Her voice cracked on the last word, and for the first time, I saw her not as my betrayer, but as a woman cornered by her past, still shackled by fear. I sat back, my rage tangled with pity, love, and confusion. The woman I married had built her world on a secret, not because she didn't love me, but because she was running from a ghost that wasn't dead after all. Ryan. The name now lived in our marriage like a third presence, poisoning everything. And as Emily's sobs filled the silence, one truth echoed louder than the rest. This wasn't over. He was still out there. The days that followed were a blur of silence and heavy air. Emily barely spoke, and when she did, her words carried the weight of someone bracing for a storm. I wanted to scream, to walk away, to erase everything she'd told me, but instead, I stayed, half out of love, half out of a stubborn need for answers. And then, the storm arrived. It was a Friday evening when the knock came. Sharp, deliberate, too confident to be a stranger. Emily froze mid-step, the color draining from her face. My chest tightened. "Is it him?" I whispered. Her silence was answer enough. I opened the door, and there he stood. Ryan. He wasn't the monster I'd imagined, not outwardly. No scars, no wild eyes, just a man. Tall, well-dressed, with a smile that chilled me more than any scowl could. A smile that said he was in control. "Daniel, right?" His voice was calm, practiced. "I've heard so much about you." I gripped the doorframe, steadying myself. "What do you want?" His eyes flicked past me, locking on Emily. She stood rigid, trembling, but her gaze didn't waver. For the first time I saw fire in her eyes, fear mixed with defiance. "Came to see my wife," Ryan said smoothly, as though the word itself was a blade. "She's not your wife anymore," I snapped. He smirked. "Marriage isn't so easily undone. Papers or not, history doesn't disappear." His tone was casual, but the venom beneath it was unmistakable. Emily's voice cracked, but she stood tall. "Ryan, leave. You don't belong here. Not anymore." His smile faded, and for a moment, the mask slipped. I caught a glimpse of the cruelty she'd described, the manipulator behind the charm. "Careful, Emily," he said, his voice low, dangerous. "You think running to him keeps you safe? You think hiding behind this little marriage erases me?" He stepped forward, but I blocked his path. "You're not welcome here," I said, my fists clenched. "Walk away. Now." Ryan tilted his head, studying me. "Brave," he murmured. "Naive, but brave. You have no idea what she's capable of hiding, what she's capable of lying about." I felt Emily flinch behind me, her breath catching. His words dug at me like claws, confirmation of what I already feared, but I couldn't show weakness. "This ends here," I said firmly. "You don't get to haunt her anymore. You don't get to poison our life." Ryan's smirk returned, but his eyes darkened. "We'll see about that." And just like that, he turned and walked away, leaving his threat hanging in the air like smoke. When the door shut, Emily collapsed into a chair, shaking. I stood frozen, every nerve in my body screaming. He wasn't gone. He'd never truly be gone. That night, lying. Awake beside Emily, I realized the cruelest truth of all. I wasn't just fighting for my marriage. I was fighting against a man who lived in her past but refused to stay there. And deep down, a question gnawed at me, one I didn't dare voice aloud. Did I have the strength to save her from him? Or would he destroy us both? And, just like that, Ryan walked out, leaving behind a silence heavier than the secret itself. But what happens now? Will he ever confront his wife? Will the truth shatter their marriage, or spark a revenge no one sees coming? What would you do if the person you trusted the most was living a lie?